Hey y'all, Jackie here, and welcome to Fantastical Follies, where we get up to various sewing shenanigans. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back to the insanity, my friends. Today we're going to talk about my mullet stays. I'm going to split the making of the stays into two parts. I'd hoped to make it one whole video, but it was just too darn long. This video is going to be all about the fit and mock-up process for the stays. I know not everyone's interested in this part of the process, but it's the most difficult part of making stays, and I wanted it to be available to those who need it because I wish I'd had access to something like this. The next video, which I'm hoping to come out next week in 2 weeks tops, will be all about the construction of the stays, making this mullet stomacher, and then the reveal. And here's the time where I say don't forget to smash that like button and click the little bell if you want to be notified when that video comes up. I upload when I can, usually every 3 weeks, but maybe I'll get myself organized enough to do every 2. As I said in my previous video where I redraw boning channels on these stays, I'm a costumer, not a dress historian. This is one person's take and one person's process. I hope that you can watch this and get something from it, but please know that I'm not an expert on 18th century construction, and while I'm interested in being historically adequate, it is not my overall goal for this specific project. After doing some research, I ended up picking Simplicity 8162, the Outlander Stays pattern designed by American Duchess. I was reluctant to use a pattern from the Big Four since, as we all know, they tend to be structured for modern sizing and construction and are not very size exclusive. However, it's notorious for being extremely short-waisted, which I am, and I trust American Duchess to be a little more period accurate than the random historical costuming you get on the other Big Four patterns. Now for the INTJ section. Making stays isn't a difficult process. Is it a beginner's project? No. But the concept is simple. You sew some parallel lines, you fill them with boning, sew up your side seams, bind that shit down, and then line that mofo. That's it. I find that people who complain about making stays being difficult really are complaining about how long it takes to do and how much work is involved. If you're the kind of person who doesn't like to put the hours in, I can tell you right now you're better off buying your stays because it is a lot of work and does take a lot of time. You do need to make a mock-up, a fully boned one, and maybe multiple depending on your body, the pattern, and how much luck you got. If you go into this process, know that it is going to take effort. Know that you're going to have to hand sew that binding down and know that it's gonna be a pain. However, for me, it's such a rewarding process when they're completed to have this beautiful handmade piece that's fit exactly for you by you. Given that stays and corsets are such an integral part of period costuming, to me it's worth the time to make them myself. You may not feel that way, and that is totally valid. That's why the gods created red threaded. By far, the hardest part of making stays is getting the fit right. So let's talk about fitting stays. How do you know if the fit's right? 1. Look for wrinkling. Wrinkling back. If it's wrinkling around the waist, it's probably an indication that your stays are too long. Bend sideways to find your natural waist point. This is where your tabs should break. They're meant to go over the hips and help bear the weight of the skirts. If your waistline and the tops of the tabs are only a small distance apart, you can probably just cut the tabs higher until they're breaking at that point. If there's a bigger difference, you'll need to slash your pattern to make it smaller. The same can be said for the opposite. If you're long in the torso, you can just cut the tabs a little smaller if the distance is, say, within 3/4 of an inch. If not, you'll have to slash and spread to make them longer. If you need a refresher on how to do that, you can check out this video here. If it's wrinkling at other spots, it's either too tight or you need to add an additional boning channel because there's not enough support. Loosen your lacing or seam allowances a little first and see if that helps. If it doesn't, then you're probably looking at a structural issue. Try adding another boning channel if there's space and see if that helps. You can also try adjusting the angle of the boning channels if it looks like it's buckling. If it's twisting, that may be a grain issue. That's a harder problem to fix without recutting. The best thing I can say is really pay attention to your grain when you cut the first time. Take the time to pull a thread or tear on grain. It can make a huge difference in your fit. Another good indication your stays aren't fitting is you're uncomfortable. If you can't breathe, your stays are laced too tight. Tight lacing was not a thing in the 18th century. You want to feel supported, but you want to be able to breathe and move and eat some chicken. A lot of times you want to put a good few hours wearing your mock-up before you make any decisions. Wear it around the house while you're cleaning, cooking, putzing around, and playing Assassin's Creed 2 on the computer. Not that that's what I was doing this morning. Sometimes you might not feel the fit issues right away when you put them on, but will feel them after an hour or two. And sometimes it's vice versa, where things feel funky until the stays have a chance to really form to your body. Give them a chance to adjust. If things are pinching, that's a big red flag. I'll show you an example of this in a minute on my original stays, but that's a pretty good indication of the torso being the wrong length. All right. That's enough of me jabbering on. Let's get to the practical part of this video.
Let's talk about some of the cosmetic issues with these stays. Firstly, I machine stitched all of the tabs. I did not do a very good job. Using a sewing machine to bind stays is extremely difficult, and I was, this was the last thing I did, and I was really in a hurry. You can see kind of the edge stitching that I did on the other side, the zigzagging. It looks messy. Also, a couple of first world problems. It is cross-laced instead of spiral laced, and I used grommets, metal grommets, instead of hand-worked eyelets, which are two things that are not indicative of the period. Does this really affect the fit or comfort of my stays? No. It was purely cosmetic, and actually I really like this particular burnished eyelet color with this fabric, and these are not the ones that I originally used. I spent a lot of time re-eyeletting these when I finally got one of those poundy eyelet setters instead of the hole punch kind. These, don't buy these suck. This will be more visible when I put it on, but if you can see that there is a huge horizontal wrinkle going around here, that is my waist point. That is where my natural waist is. It is much higher than where the tabs break. These tabs should be breaking at this line. It is particularly visible on the back. If you can see here, I mean, it is a good 2 inches higher than where the tabs are breaking, and this is causing a lot of discomfort for me, and the main reason why I am going to redo these stays. They're fine stays. I mean, they're okay. If they weren't uncomfortable, I would still wear them, but they're not. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these on, and we can take a look at the fit problems on an actual body. All right, let's talk about these stays. Before I get into what I don't like about them, a couple of things that I do like about these stays. Firstly, they fit me right in the bust. They hit at the right spot, and they have a nice curve here that gives me the right shape. I also like that these straps don't fall down. I have a problem with straps falling down in everything, so I like that these are further enough inward that they don't fall down. However, they are extremely high, and they often peek out over the edge of my Marie Antoinette gown that I made, and it's a constant struggle to keep them hidden, especially now, and it's problematic. So this is a known issue with this particular pattern, that it's just too high in the back. Another fit issue I have, and this is partially because these stays were made 2 sizes too small, and therefore they are too small. But if you can see this gape here, right at the back, because my waist is so high and because the tabs aren't cut correctly, all of this kind of plays into this gap here, which is uncomfortable. It really cuts into me a lot. And that brings me into the other major issue with these, and the reason why I have decided to make a new set, and that is, it is just too long-waisted for me. And if I bend to the side, you can see that's where I'm bending. that's where the tabs need to be. And this becomes even more pronounced when we sit. So I'm going to adjust my camera and sit down and show you. Okay, it is cutting into me right here. And it is also cutting into me in the back too. Let's see if I can at least turn to the side so you can see. That's the fit issue. I'm sad to let these go. I worked really hard on them, and I think that it's going to be hard, but in the long run, I definitely think having a new set of stays that fits me, that doesn't make me feel bad. So it's going to be worth the time and the effort to get it done.
The first step was to cut out a cardboard mock-up using the pre-made pattern just to make sure I was on the right track. And y'all, I was glad I did it.
I have completed my cardboard mock-up. First of all, I'm gonna say it was really hard to keep together. I used masking tape first and I was not successful. And I then tried duct tape, which is what I should have done in the first place, and was also not successful. So I ended up having to add these like width-wise extra duct tape for extra support. And even then, some of the seams were popping away. So if you decide to go the cardboard route, make sure that you prepare yourself for a heck of a lot of taping and use duct tape, don't use anything else. When I put this on, I was astounded to find, and you can tell because I haven't undone the lacing in the back, it laced together completely in the front and in the back. Even though technically I cut a size that is I think two or three sizes smaller than what the recommendation was based on my measurements, because I wanted to have that space for the stomacher, it still closed all the way. And not only did it close all the way, but I had a lot of space up in the bust area. It was not supportive at all. So I've been thinking about this a while, and you know, in reality, I should probably go down 2 sizes so I have enough space. I feel weird doing that because it is so much smaller than what my measurements are. So instead of doing that, I'm going to go down 1 size. It appears that I am not the only person who has run into the issue with this pattern. So if you are going to make this pattern, please be aware that it runs very large. Even though they say that there is negative ease in there, there is not. So size down. You know your body and you know how squishy you are or how not squishy you are or whatever. I would recommend at least going down a full size, if not 2 to start out with, and do a mock-up. I'm gonna get the next size down, cut out, put on here. I'm gonna try it on without adding the boning, figure out what I wanna do, and from there, once I have that adjusted, I'm gonna trace my mock-up onto a sheet of paper, and we will go ahead and modify the boning, because I definitely don't want half bone stays, I want full bone stays.
The pattern pieces use a 5/8 inch seam allowance. I'm adding an additional 3/8 of an inch, so I have a full inch to play with in the final stays. I then marked my seam allowances, cut all the tabs, and basted my pre-made lacing strips onto the mock-up fabric and tried it on.
Hello friends, and welcome to fitting number 2. The first fitting didn't go so well. I had some difficulties getting it laced in the front. I ended up going down 2 sizes instead of 1 when I realized that I had only gone down 1 size. I was mistaken when I was talking earlier. So I went down 2 sizes, and then I was having trouble getting it laced. So I took it off and I removed the lacing strips. I added a 1/2 inch seam allowance on each side of the lacing strips, sewed that in, and then on this side seam here, this one, I sewed it a 1/4 inch bigger, so essentially 1/2 inch on each side. So I gave myself an extra 2 inches. In the front, I did not change the back. Here's the back, okay? Now, we are running into a little bit of wrinkling here, okay? Especially on the side back. Part of that is because there is no boning in this. Part of it is that I need to cut this tab. So here is where my waist is breaking. Can you see that? And here is where the tab ends. So it's about 1 inch. I'm gonna have to cut that up about 1 inch. And then also, because I don't have any straps or boning here, there's no support, and this helps support the bust. So that's not happening. As you can see, when I pull this, all of the wrinkling, for the most part here, goes away. So that tells me that this is going to be okay. This seam is going to be okay. But, and this is a big but, okay? I still don't have room for my stomacher. I have a little bit of room, but it's not quite the amount that I want. I wouldn't be able to see it all the way down. Yes, we want to have the V, right? That is the look of the period, but I want this to be open. So what I think I'm going to do, I'd like to have about, let's say, another inch of gap. I'm actually going to say an inch and a half because, as we all know, stuff stretches. And then I am going to cut out some muslin and line it and get the bony channels in and see where we are from there. If I need to make some more minor adjustments, I will, but I think that I can't make any more decisions until this thing is boned. Round 2. So let's talk about this. Apart from the fact that my shift doesn't want to stay up. Last night, I put in the bones in my mock-up. Now, I only half boned this side, and this side I fully boned. I didn't want to fully bone both of them if I wasn't going to like it, because it takes so much time. And if you look, the fully boned side is almost completely wrinkle-free. I've got a little bit of wrinkling happening right here, but that just might be the bias section, you know, that's being pulled. I'm okay with that. This side, however, is a little bit more wrinkled, and I think I do need the support of the full bones. Here's my stomacher. Now I've decided I'm going to put a horizontal bone here because it's wanting to crumple like this. So that is one change I'm going to make. I'm happy with the distance here. I feel like I can pull it in if I need to. I have enough space, but there's no leeway room here. There's no way to pull it in. I can pull it in from the back, but that still doesn't leave me a lot of space. So what I think I'm going to do is, starting maybe about here under the bust, and take it in a half inch on each side. Now that might affect my boning channels. I may have to fiddle with that, but I think that's what I'm going to do. I do need to take this side seam up a little bit because my tab is just breaking just a little bit too far down. The rest of these I kind of cut up a little bit, and they're hitting me at my waist, but this one, this side seam is not quite there. What I think I'm going to do from here is get some old bias tape and sew this to the top here and simulate the crisscross straps that the American Duchess does on their other stays. I like the idea of doing that instead of the traditional straps because it's flexible, it's low profile, I can adjust for different necklines. I'm gonna try that and see how I like it before I make any final decisions about the straps. But otherwise, I think those are the only modifications I'm gonna make. I'm gonna take in just a little bit on the side here, and I might spread it out. I might take a 1/4 inch here and a 1/4 inch here. In any case, I'd like to have an inch gap at the bottom. I found some 1-inch bias tape in my stash that's almost the right color. Here they are crossed in the back. And then normally these would get hooked right here with hooks, but I don't have those yet. I definitely think I'm gonna go with the adjustable straps. I'm still having a problem with them falling off. I may need to do some adjustments, but for the most part, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna go with this. I like the adjustability of these, and I like being able to take them in if the fabric stretches. I have finally got a little gap in my front stomacher. There are very little wrinkles. I'm pretty happy with this. I don't think that there needs to be any more major modifications before I cut into my real fabric. I've been wearing this for about an hour. I had a snack, a large snack, and I feel pretty comfortable. Yeah, I think we're good. I'm surprised at how well this fit, apart from my weird little modifications that were really only put in place to put the stomacher in. In any case, I think we're good to go. I think we're ready to cut it out. And that's where we're going to stop for today. In the next video, again, I'll show you all the construction of the stays and my Bowie themed stomacher. I did want to say that fitting stays and corsets is a very personal thing and going to be different for every body. If you're running into fit issues, please know that I am here
want to help, and you can reach out to me if you have questions, no matter your cultural background, gender, size, orientation, skin color, or sewing level. You can ask questions here or find me on Instagram as Fantastical Follies Costuming, all one word. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm really excited to share these finished stays with you. They've been done for about 2 months now, and I freaking love them. Please let me know if you liked this different structure where I split up the mock-up process from the final result. I'm considering doing it also for the English gown I'm making, and I'm interested to see whether y'all would prefer a longer video that takes longer to make or smaller bites slightly more often. That's about it from me, y'all. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. It really helps to get my videos seen. If you'd like to make my day, I'd love to hear from you. Leave me a comment down below and take a guess on what my party side of the stomacher is going to be, or tell me what you're working on, listening to, or watching. I just finished the new season of Mrs. Maisel, and I freaking loved it. Or you could just tell me a joke. I really like jokes, especially the bad ones, and nobody's left me a joke yet. I'll see y'all later. But it was just too darn I forgot to turn the damn AC off. I don't know who invented rings, but they're evil. They look so pretty and yet they're so uncomfortable. Okay. I guess that means I can put the air conditioning back on now.